Hi, I'm Josh Lambert, the Group Product Manager for our Enablement section, and this is our group conversation. It is a public stream, just as a reminder, and we're just open to questions. We have much of the team here available to help answer. So we don't have any questions right now. I'll pause for a few minutes and see if anyone wants to write any in, but it sounds like we either did a very good job in preparing the slides, or perhaps not a very good job in preparing the slides and that didn't spark questions. So we'll sit and wait for a little bit, see how things go. And if you do have a question, please feel free to vocalize as opposed to writing first and then vocalizing. I might talk over a couple things while we're just waiting for a couple minutes to give folks a chance to flip through the deck. But let me share my screen here really fast. One update is that we've been working hard on instrumentation for our performance metrics. And we recently introduced the ability into usage ping to query the embedded Prometheus instance. This only works for single node instances right now, but we are starting to get back some pretty interesting data around the types of and sizes of nodes that we have out there for our customers. So this is a kind of a dashboard with some working dashboards that the memory team has been using, and there's some interesting information in there. A couple highlights. One is that for folks with the instrumentation turned on and who are running a new version, which is post 13.0, Puma is overwhelmingly the choice application servers. And so that's good news for folks, and that we have very, very, very few people actually, I'll just pop this up here real quick. We have very few people actually staying back on Unicorn, which means it's working for them. They're not seeing problems, they aren't falling back, and they felt comfortable going forward. So you can see that here. We only have 6 instances still on this. Now this was introduced in 13.1, 13.2, but that's some good telemetry there. But you can see we have a interesting distribution of memory and also CPU, where we have some pretty beefy single node instances with over 1 terabyte of memory and 96 cores of CPUs. So people can vertically scale pretty high and still see success with GitLab, which is great. So there's some good data there, but also wanted to highlight it because it provides an opportunity for others who might want to leverage such integration, usage ping and Prometheus, to get other operational metrics like the Gitly team, or perhaps some others who might want to leverage it as well. Looks like we have some questions coming in. Scott, you have the first one. Thanks for writing it down. You want to vocalize?
Hey, Josh. Looks like a lot of work going on OpenShift. Thanks to all the collaboration there. I know ProServe's heavily involved in that as well. This is an IECV driver that Sales and CS has requested. I think there's a continuum of whether customers are blocked or they can use it with some workarounds or / challenges. Can you help me understand where we are on that at the moment?
Yeah, Larissa or Steve, you want to help answer that one? Larissa?
Yeah. Hi, Scott. So I have heard various, I've seen various comments on that Epic that people have gotten it to work in different ways. I'm not really sure of the details of how they did that. But we're still working on building the operator that would have official support for upgrading and backing up GitLab and all the functionality that you would need to have it in a production environment.
Okay. So it sounds like customers have made it work on their own, but you're not sure what exactly they did to enable it.
Exactly. I don't really know the details of how it, like to what extent it's actually working and what functionality they're able to do with it.
Okay. Do you have a rough timeline for when we would be able to support a customer using us with OpenShift?
Yeah, so we're still aiming for end of Q3 or beginning of Q4 timeframe.
Okay, thank you.
We've got a proof of concept in the current milestone, and I think we're going to have a lot more information after we've been through that proof of concept.
Thanks, Larissa.
Welcome.
Yeah, I think one of the big ones there is the security that OpenShift has some elevated security requirements that we currently don't meet or don't support these features in our container images. So I think that that's one of them where if you require through company policy these additional security features enabled, you kind of have to disable them with GitLab right now. So you can run it, but it's up to the company whether they want to accept that potential. The fact that we don't work with those and have them to get turned off. So there could very well be more. I'm sure there probably are, but that's one of them.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, John, do you want to hit the next question? Can you
Sure.
verbalize it, please?
Yep. I see on slide 27, one of the kind of bullets about what's next is supporting community efforts to add ARM64 support. I was hoping you could just share some more detail on what's going on there.
Yeah, Larissa, that's that one's. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can take that. Hi, John. The community team at ARM has been building an ARM64 package, and we are setting up some hardware now in this current milestone, I believe, to be able to test and build that package and make it available.
Okay, thanks. So it's really their community team and not like folks from the GitLab community that are helping it. Is that right? Or
Yeah, it's been driven by their community team.
all right, cool. That's awesome.
From the distribution side, we have multiple people that are working through the requirements and ensuring functionality so that we can directly bring in the work that they're doing and include that as part of the product across the board. We're using it as a learning experience for us as well as the community and documenting everything as we go.
Awesome. Thanks, John, and thanks, Jason and Larissa. Marin, you have the next question?
Yeah, slide 25. I see a mention of the pages outage that we had recently. And I'm trying to understand what we are trying to do to improve the situation so we don't have a similar event soon. Context around why I'm asking this is we are considering getting GitLab pages on our main SLA page. And we need to understand like what kind of impact that service will have on our overall availability.
I'm not sure. So I think that was like a build pipeline, if I recall that issue enough sufficiently. So I'm not sure Jason or perhaps on the team who was working on that. I think the problem was that we ended up with like a dependency mismatch and it went to production and it didn't work. I'm not sure if anyone knows the details there of what we have to do to fix it.
Summary is that we included the changes to a configuration for pages, but the version of pages that actually included that change did not make it into that particular tag revision. So we were not realizing that that change hadn't made it in. We don't specifically have a roadmap laid out at this time, but one of the things that we do need to do is do a better job of testing through all of those items. This is an instance where we don't have a full end-to-end suite that actually covers all of the integration between these pieces, and something slipped through the cracks.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's the last question we have so far. We'll give folks another minute or two to think of any others they had in addition, otherwise you can wrap it up.
Do you have anything we can go out on a positive note with?
I can. All right.
I have one thing from Slack channel that one of our core team members shared, and that is someone upgraded, the company updated from GitLab 6 to GitLab 13 in 2.5 days without any issues, and only with 1 day additional that they used. So basically for 1 day they upgraded, and the other day they used to verify that systems are working correctly. So that's, I think, something that distribution team probably appreciates.
That's great news. Thank you, Maren.
Sid, I think you have the next question, and thanks, Maren, for that. It's always good to see those feedback from the community.
Phone is working. I'll try that. Why do we have a GitLab orchestrator and a GitLab operator? It seems that their functionality would overlap.
They're actually designed to do slightly different things. The operator is intended specifically for use with cloud native inside of existing clusters, whereas the orchestrator is capable of currently deploying large-scale deployments of our standard and reference architectures. So the operator will be able to deploy inside of large clusters, but the orchestrator has the ability to currently deploy into GCP. We're planning to add other cloud providers, but it will soon, or in the roadmap, have the ability to actually deploy the clusters that you would be able to put the operator into and then configure that for you. So it's actually a different target, but an ancillary thing that we're doing to try and make it easier for our customers that are coming in as large to be able to deploy at large scale.
So the orchestrator would use the operator if it's a cluster, and then if it's not a cluster, it would do something else?
The orchestrator is specifically tied to the omnibus deployments. It does not support any cloud native at this point. It's essentially Terraform to spin up infrastructure and then Ansible on top to configure GitLab using the omnibus packages. And
it uses Omnibus and Terraform and Ansible.
Yes.
And it will never use the operator.
Eventually, it won't consume it, but it could set up resources, Kubernetes clusters that would then consume the operator or leverage the operator. Like Jason says, two different targets right now. One is sort of old school omnibus on very large environments using the existing components with Terraform and Ansible. And then an extension of that could be, instead of provisioning just nodes or instances, VMs, it could provision Kubernetes clusters in large scale on providers, and then automate the deployment of GitLab using the operator inside of those clusters. Does that clear it up?
Yeah, that's a lot clearer. Consider cross-linking the two and explaining how they differ for people looking at them, because
that's a great call out.
I think it's not obvious to customers. For example, is the orchestrator linked from our installation page?
Not yet. It's still in really early stages of development. So we haven't got to linking it in the install page yet.
Are we aware of customers and users using it?
No, we're just going into what we're calling an alpha phase, and in the beta phase is when we're seeking customers that are doing new installs that would be willing to try it out. So that would be more like end of Q3.
Okay. And what's the reason for having both Terraform and Ansible in there?
Probably answer that best. Robert, are you on the call?
I am. So the reason for it is that when we're talking about configuring the complete system, Terraform does not provide, it provides stateful management of resources, but when you configure configuration management, It doesn't do that in a way that you can just leave things alone, because it doesn't have a notion of how to configure and leave it alone outside of just pure like machines or containers. So Ansible is maintaining that so that once you have your cluster provision, you only apply configuration changes. You're not touching the infrastructure. So it's using two pieces that are targeted specifically at what they are best at. And as far as Terraform is published, that's not in their current scope to make that a provisioning tool. They specifically eliminated that from their mission. So
Cool, thanks.
I wanted to throw one more note on the orchestrator, just that we are using it internally, essentially scratching our own itch initially with CI to build a more robust way to test Geo. Our current pipeline for Omnibus doesn't include Geo. We wanted to include Geo, and so this tool is a perfect example of taking some existing things that we're doing well and then building on those and adding additional components like Geo and other HA. We're going to be adding Petroni is another good example of once customers have these large environments up, we want to change out major components. Having all of this stuff set up in playbooks makes it a whole lot easier and more consistent for support people to deal with.
Cool.
Yeah, to add a little more larger context in the orchestrator for folks on the call, the goal is in the near term for customers is to deploy reference architecture in 15, 20, 30 minutes and really making it easy and not having to require them to effectively build their own Terraform scripts that then manage the whole installation and upgrade process. So the idea is that we can really make deployment of these architectures really easy, encourage more users to deploy the reference architectures, which we know work, and then also making sure that other operational tasks like day 2 operations, like upgrades, are similarly easy, and that zero downtime upgrades, which currently can be a bit of a process, are also coordinated correctly for all of our customers. And so that way, we really take the burden off of customers to sort of a time invested to get up and running and to then do day 2 operations. Because right now you really at certain scales, you have to write your own automation. There's no other way to do it. It's just too, if you have 5 or 10 nodes at GitLab, you don't want to have hands-on keyboards managing this process. So that's your overall goal here. And then in the future, if we can also scale out to providing more turnkey operations for like deployment of infrastructure for Kubernetes-based installations, that'd be great as well.
maybe just a benchmark. When I was first starting Orchestrator, I was told the average time to set up a basic Geo cluster setup was about 3 to 5 hours. Orchestrator current iteration does it in 20 minutes. So that's what we're going for, to take hours or days down to minutes.
Great.
Charles, I had a follow-up question to that. I think our teams are working closely on the reference architecture. Do you know what will come first in the orchestrator? Are you going to support Omnibus first, or are you going to go straight to cloud native installations in the work on the orchestrator?
Go ahead, Lars.
Sorry, we're focused on Omnibus first.
Okay. Thanks for that.
I just added a note switching from orchestrator to operator. Sorry, switching context now. I think this could be a source of confusion in the future too. We have an operator for managing the full life cycle of deploying GitLab on Kubernetes that Jason, you can fill in more details, but we started on, I think, over a year or 2 years ago. We've also been working on this operator with Red Hat to manage deploying GitLab on OpenShift, but it's not restricted to OpenShift. It's been built so that it can manage the lifecycle of deploying GitLab in any standard Kubernetes environment. So I've linked an issue there to look at deprecating the one that we built in favor of focusing development on the Red Hat one.
And Mac, if you'd like to, I'm not sure if we're engaged with you, but if not, it might make sense to help, consolidate on tooling to deploy reference architectures and things like that for internal use. As mentioned, we're also dogfooding it for Geo. We had also some issues that went out on the Geo side of things, maybe 6 or 9 months ago. And this was also identified to help address that as well, to make sure that we test all the upgrade scenarios and make sure that when we ship updates that we don't accidentally have issues for folks on the who utilize Geo. So we're using internally now to help cover those areas.
And just for reference, Naya and Nick from the QA team are very heavily involved. They did a full end-to-end testing and a write-up, so they can give you a full insight as to where that's at, because we brought QA in from day one. So, and I'll put the issue in the agenda.
Awesome. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Yeah, I've been hearing the term orchestrator pretty often from my team, so I think they are aligned with using an orchestrator to do the setup as well.
Awesome. Doesn't appear like we have any more questions, and we're approaching the time limit, so we can wrap it up. We do have, to echo Jason, quite a lot of exciting things noted out in the slide deck. PG12, Petroni are progressing really well, which is exciting. In particular, the Petroni side of things, which brings a lot of benefits for our customers, but also aligns Omnibus with .com, which has been kind of diverged for some period of time. And so bringing those back together and making sure we have testing coverage in .com for our large users is great to see, and removing some of that discrepancy. So that's really exciting, along with the performance improvements and other broader work that the team is doing. And of course, the GitLab.com rollout of advanced search is also was also great to complete within the past month. So some big wins from the team there as well. But doesn't appear like any more questions, and so we can wrap up. And thanks everyone for the time and the questions. Happy Monday, and we'll see everyone in about 6 weeks.